Hey, so I wanted to talk a little bit about a project that I'm working on. As I'm looking to go to Strongsville, there are some specific cards I'm looking for, and I thought I would share a little bit about the project I'm working on. So this video really isn't about Strongsville; it's about my project. So, but I felt like I needed to explain a little bit about this project before I jump in and show you kind of what it is I'm looking for, what it is I'm working on. When I was collecting baseball cards as a kid, I, I feel like looking back now, there was a disadvantage that I feel like I had. I didn't have anyone around me, any adults around me who collected baseball cards or even watched baseball. My parents didn't watch baseball. My oldest, I come from a pretty big family. My oldest brothers didn't do baseball cards, didn't do baseball, and so I was sort of I was surrounded by people who collected baseball cards, but they were all my age, you know. And so if you're collecting cards on your own and you don't have anyone around you who collects baseball cards who can kind of teach you stuff, you're kind of in the bubble that you collect in. So I collected from the mid to late 80s into the early to mid 90s. I collected baseball cards. And so all of my knowledge of baseball and baseball cards is from a pretty um, tight area of time, tight kind of few years of baseball history. And so when I got back into collecting cards, I knew that I wanted to change that. I wanted to get to know history. I love history in any sort, and so I knew that with baseball, I wanted to learn the history. I wanted to learn the history of the sport because I didn't have any knowledge of the history of the sport, and I wanted to learn the history of collecting. Now, of course, I suppose it wouldn't be fair to say I had no knowledge. I knew some history. Everybody knows who Mickey Mantle is, and if you've watched Sandlot, you know who Babe Ruth is. But I knew all the big names, but I didn't know anybody else. And I suppose I knew some of the cards because they were on my Turn Back the Clock cards, and so I knew some of those, but I didn't really have a broad history. And so when I got back into collecting, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to collect and how am I going to collect? And one of the podcasts that I listened to was Mike Monahan's podcast, The Golden Age of Cardboard, and he jokes around about, or maybe he's not joking, but says nobody goes back and listens to old podcasts. Well, I do. Mike, thank you for the hours and hours and hours of your podcast that I've listened to, that I just kind of tore through, and it what it did was it gave me this desire to I I knew that I couldn't just jump in and have all of his knowledge and a lot of his guests and the knowledge that they have and the knowledge of many of you that are watching that you have. I can't just jump into that, but I can learn. And so I'm going to enjoy the process of learning the history of baseball and the history of baseball cards. And there was one thing that I knew, though, that I needed to factor into whatever I decided to do was cost. I've got four kids at home. The oldest of whom is 18, getting ready to go into college. So I've got a senior, I've got a sophomore, I've got an eighth grader and a fifth grader, and so I've got like these four kids, and that ain't cheap. So I was like, well, okay, so I can't do I don't want to do rookie cards because as soon as you jump into rookie cards, there's some cost issues, right? Like it's not that it's out of the realm of possibility. I could collect those. It just would take me longer, and I would have to spread out kind of how I'm purchasing and when I'm purchasing, and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be able to dive in and to really collect cards, and maybe sometime in the future I can go back and do that, but at least initially I didn't want to. So I didn't want to do rookie cards, and I wanted to stay away, at least initially, from pre-war. I I love pre-war cards. I love watching videos when people share their pre-war stuff. I think it's fascinating, and I love that stuff. I love the history of it. I love learning about those players. Some of the stories surrounding the pre-war guys, just crazy stories, and so I love that part of it. But I knew at least initially, I needed to stay away from that. I also because I was going to do history, I wanted to do Hall of Famers. And I know you can learn about baseball through non-Hall of Famers, and I'm doing that. But it helped me to have a starting point, to have this, okay, so let's just do Hall of Famers. Let's do post-war Hall of Famers. And then because I'm a little bit like I wanted to have something that made sense in a binder, because I'm a binder guy. I wanted to have them all be kind of the same brand. And so I was like, well, you can't do Bowman, and I don't want to do, I don't want to do these other cards, so I'll just stick with Topps. Topps has been, I mean, that's what I collected when I was a kid. Of course, I had junk wax, so right, Score, Donruss, I had it all. But I wanted to kind of focus on, okay, let's just do Topps, and let's do Topps cards of Hall of Famers through the years, and let's let's have it so that as you flip through the binder, you are flipping through the years of the hobby, and everyone there is a Hall of Famer, and so it can kind of help me to learn about the history of baseball cards, so I can look at these and as you know how it works as you're collecting Topps cards, you're finding yourself, going down all of these rabbit trails and finding these other cards. And as you're collecting Hall of Famers, you begin to learn about the players around them and the guys that helped them become who they were even. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed that, but I wanted to limit at least the binder, this particular binder, to Hall of Famers. I have a Topps through the years, kind of starting in 1952, and I know that they had the 51 kind of playing card, the card game cards. I'm aware of that, but for the sake of this binder, I really wanted to start in 52 and really go to present. I have cards that are into the teens or the 2000s, so it's an ongoing project. It's not something I'm ever going to complete. So that's a fun part of it for me. But I knew there were going to be some cards that were going to be difficult, like pricey. I knew it was going to be hard to find a Mickey Mantle. Although not doing a rookie card, uh, I'm not limiting myself to any particular. It just has to be a base Mickey Mantle card, and so I can do any Mickey Mantle card. So I'm like, well, that'll help. I can kind of just see what I can find, and I can see what I can find with some of the other bigger names that are going to be more expensive, but I didn't know. This will tell you how foolishly I started this. I didn't know about the Satchel Paige. So the 53 Satchel Paige is going to take me a little bit of time to collect. But I want to have anybody who is in the Hall of Fame who has a Topps card, I want one of their cards for this project. And so I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to point out a couple of places that I want to fill. At this point, I think I have 23 Hall of Famers that I have yet to get. Some of those are the obvious big names. I don't have my Mickey Mantle yet. I don't have Robinson, Jackie. I don't have Jackie Robinson. I don't have Ted Williams, people like that. But and I don't have the Satchel Paige. But I have a lot of the others, obviously. And so I want to show you that, show you my project, show you a couple cards that I'll be looking for. In a project like this, the interesting thing is if I wanted to, I could jump on eBay and buy any and all of these cards. And I want them raw, so I don't have to pay graded prices for them. Um, but I want to do this a little more slowly because I want to take the time to learn about the hobby and learn about baseball as I go. And so there's really no rush to push my way through this, as it were. And so let me show you the binder, and then I'll talk about kind of some of the cards I'm looking for as I'm working to finish out this binder. So let me turn this camera around and we'll look at it together. Okay, so here's my binder. As you can see, I've got some missing, but this is what it looks like if you kind of flip through it through the years. So you can see I've made pretty good progress in some of these years in the 50s. Sorry for some of the glare. I'll do the best I can, but trying to show a binder is not easy. But I'm doing pretty well. I've got 4 years that I'm missing in the 50s, two out of 50s and 2 out of the 60s. But other than that, as you flip through the binder, I've got a lot of them. And there's been a couple things that have determined, well, there's been a few years that have determined kind of what years I have in the binder. One is just convenience, frankly. Like, what do I have? What do I have available? One of them is what team is the player playing for? I'm a Ricky Henderson guy, so I wanted Ricky Henderson playing for the A's. I don't want him in that Yankees uniform. Thank you very much. None of that nonsense. Uh, Sometimes it's just like, is the card cool? Like, I love the 90 Ryan Sandberg, and um, so there's just things like that I'm okay. So what's the card? And there was a Dave Winfield that somebody was talking about one time, and I said, oh, I've got that Winfield, and want to make sure that 76. I want to make sure I have that one in my binder for sure. I love that card. I don't know if I can get that in. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You all know what it looks like. But the other thing that I wanted to do a little bit of, and I haven't done this as much yet, but it's something I want to do a little bit more, is as I am learning about these players, I want to get cards from years that are significant to them. Um, I'd really rather pick up a different Clemente, but that one was available. I picked it up pretty cheap at the last show I was in. Like, for instance, I'm a Pirates fan. So 1960, I've got the Bill Mazeroski because, of course, Bill Mazeroski and the famous walk-off home run, Game 7 against the Yankees. Gotta love that. And actually, speaking of the Pirates, my entire 1979 is that Stargell, Parker, and Blyleven. I may actually. I have the Stargell from 71. I may move that here and try to find a 71 Clemente for that. I just haven't been able to pick those up yet. But as you can see, what this ends up being is just you kind of flip through the years, and the further you flip, the further you get, and you get these other players, and so I have all kind of different different shots and different ones that. Some of these cards are really great. I love these cards. Actually, it's kind of funny as I've been learning about some of these players. I had this Billy Wagner, and like I don't know. Maybe I'll get a different Billy Wagner. But then somebody was talking about. I was watching somebody. They were saying that was their favorite Billy Wagner card, and I thought, well, all right, maybe we'll keep it. Um, but I love just flipping through this. Honestly, there are times I will just sit down and flip through my binder, and I've got it currently clear up to Adrian Beltre, and that's his 2015 card, and so again, it's ongoing. Like I said, I've got 23. Honestly, some of those 23, like I don't have CC Sabathia. It's kind of hard to find some of today's base cards at shows and things. So that's the kind of thing sometimes that I'll pick up off of eBay. Or although at my last card show, I was able to pick up some of those more modern day players, so I was appreciating that. So I thought that I would show you this, and then I thought maybe I would ask for some help. I mentioned that I'm a Pirates fan, and so I have certain Pirates in certain years. I'm a Ricky Henderson fan. That's who I grew up collecting, but I see him as an athletic. And so I wanted to make sure whichever card I had of him, he was in his A's uniform. I wanted some of these players that are significant to me for different reasons. I have certain years. Well, I thought that one nice thing about being part of a card community is you all know, probably all of you know more about the history of the sport and the history of the hobby than I do, but also you would know about like what players have significant years. Maybe your favorite player or somebody on your favorite team. And I would just like you, if you have a comment, if you have somebody like, you should really consider getting a Brooks Robinson in a different year, or a Yastrzemski in a different year. Here's a year that they were the MVP, or they accomplished some feat. I'd really, I'm considering picking up another. I have Bob Gibson's a 68 in a different collection, but his 68 years, of course, historic, and so I've thought about getting either a second Bob Gibson from 68 or something like that, and moving one of these other 68 cards to a player to a different year. I have different ones of these players. A lot of them I have other cards of theirs that I could use and swap these around for, but some of them I don't have. And so if you have suggestions, say, hey, this player for this year would be a really good card for you to pick up, either because it's just a really cool looking card, or maybe it's because the player did something significant. If you would just put that in the comments, I'd love that. And you don't even have to put why if you don't want to. You could just say, hey, look at Tom Seaver in 1976 or whatever, and just say that, and I will dive in myself and do some research and begin looking, and and that way you can kind of help me as I continue to learn the history of the game and continue to enjoy putting this binder collection together. Anyway, that being all said, one of the things I'm looking to do, one of the things I would like to do at Strongsville is I'd like to have at least one card in my 52 and 53. My Phil Rizzuto looks a little lonely on that first page, and so I want to get a 52 Johnny Mize, and I want to get a 53 Ralph Kiner. Again, I know these aren't expensive cards. I mean 53. I mean, good grief, at some point I'm going to need the Satchel Paige in that row, and that's not going to be easy to get. Um, but I want to be able to do that. Actually, I wouldn't mind also if I'm able to get them to get a couple for here, 62 and 63. I don't have Nellie Fox or Robin Roberts. Both of them have cards in those years that I could pick up. So I may be looking for those as well. I don't have a Campy. I've thought about picking up a Campy as well. It just kind of depends. I actually don't have a Willie Mays. So anyway, there's a lot of these players, but my main priority, if I can, is to get the 52 Johnny Mize, a 53 Ralph Kiner, and then I would like to get a 62 and 63 of Nellie Fox and Robin Roberts, one of each for one of those years. But anyway, so that's my project. It's been really fun for me. I've really enjoyed this, and like I said, some nights I just sit around and look at cards. Sometimes I swap some of these out for a different one just for fun. Yeah, if you have any comments, any suggestions, I really would. I really appreciate just having the help of the community. I just noticed that I have an 88 Don Sutton in my 89 row. Not sure how that happened, but I'll take care of that when I shut off the camera. Probably some of you already noticed and it irritated you, but I will take care of it. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. If you've made it this far, again, I want to just say a word of appreciation to Mike Moynihan for all of his inspiration on this particular binder collection, along with a lot of others. But Mike has really been a great encouragement to me in this, and so thank you for that, and thank you all for watching. Catch you next time.